Here is the uncomfortable truth about QA certifications. Most hiring managers do not care about them. They care about one thing: can you build something that works? The fastest way to answer that question is to show them a project. A real automation framework living on GitHub that they can clone and run. Not a tutorial project. Not 5 test files in a folder. A structured, documented framework that demonstrates you understand fixtures, mocking, data management, CI/CD, and how to organize code at scale. That is what we are building in this episode. We are going to walk through a complete framework structure. Every directory. Every file. What goes where and why. We will look at the conftest setup, the page object layer, the test organization, the CI pipeline, and the README. That makes a hiring manager want to talk to you. By the end of this episode, you will have a blueprint you can implement this week and have on GitHub by the weekend. And when an interviewer asks for a code sample, you will not be scrambling to find something. You will paste a link and let the work speak for itself. This is the episode that ties the entire series together. Let us build it. Let us start with the project structure. This is the skeleton of a professional framework. At the root, you have your configuration files. pytest.ini or pyproject.tom for pytest configuration. Requirements.txt and requirements-test.txt for dependencies. A .env example file showing what environment variables are expected, without real values. A readme.md file. We will come back to this. The .github/workflows directory holds your CI pipeline YAML. The tests directory is where everything else lives. Inside tests, you have a conftest.py at the root for project-wide fixtures. A pages directory for page object model classes. An API directory for API client wrappers. A data directory for test factories and test data files. A utils directory for helper functions. And test directories organized by feature or layer. Test/UI for end-to-end browser tests. Test/API for API-level tests. Test/unit for unit tests of utility code. Each of those directories has its own conftest.py if it needs layer-specific fixtures. This structure is not arbitrary. It reflects how the application is organized. UI tests live with UI tests. API tests live with API tests. A new developer can navigate it without a guide. And when someone asks what your test coverage looks like, you can point at the directory structure and answer the question visually. Let us walk through the key files. The root conftest.py holds 3 categories of fixtures. Browser setup, a fixture that creates a Playwright or Selenium browser instance, yields it, and closes it. Scope to function so each test gets a clean browser. Authenticated session, a fixture that depends on the browser fixture. Navigates to login, enters credentials from environment variables, and yields the session. API client, a fixture that creates an authenticated HTTP client with base URL and headers from environment variables. All credentials come from environment variables, never hard-coded. The pages directory holds 1 class per page of the application. Each class accepts the browser or page object, exposes methods for user actions, and has locators defined as class-level attributes at the top. If a locator changes, you update one attribute in one class. Every test using that page is fixed. The API directory holds a client class that wraps your HTTP library. It has methods like getUsers, createUser, deleteUser. Tests call these methods. They do not build URLs or set headers directly. This abstraction means if your API URL scheme changes, you update the client, not 50 tests. The data directory holds factory functions for generating test data, and JSON or CSV files for parameterized test cases. Everything in this structure has one job. It is composable. It is replaceable. When something changes in the application, you change one thing in the framework. Here is what a test looks like inside this framework. A UI test for the login feature. The function is decorated with parameterize, taking valid credentials and expected destination. It receives the authenticated session fixture and the expected URL. The body is 4 lines. Navigate to login. Enter credentials. Submit. Assert URL. The test does not know how login works. It calls the login page object method. The login page object does not know which browser is being used. It receives it. The browser fixture does not know which test is running. It just provides a browser. 4 layers. Each one knows only what it needs to know. Now here is an API test for user creation. It receives the API client fixture and calls createUser with a factory-generated user object. It asserts the response status as 201 and the returned user ID is not null. 3 lines of test logic. The factory handles data. The client handles HTTP. The test handles assertions. This is what clean test code looks like. Now the README. This is what a hiring manager reads before looking at a single test file. It should contain what the framework tests, how to set it up locally, how to run the full suite, how to run a subset, what environment variables are required, and what CI does. A good README takes 30 minutes to write and answers every question a reviewer would have before they even open a file. Write it like you are onboarding a new team member. Because eventually, you will be. Let us talk about what makes a portfolio project stand out versus blend in. The things that actually get noticed when someone reviews your GitHub. First, the commit history. A project with one commit that dumps everything in at once. Looks like a tutorial copy-paste. A project with 20 meaningful commits. Each one adding a feature or fixing something, looks like real development. Commit as you build. Write real commit messages. Second, a working CI badge in your README. A green badge that says tests passing is worth more than any certification logo. It proves the suite actually runs. It proves you know how to wire up CI. It is 12 lines of YAML and 1 line in your README. Third, test coverage report. Run pytest with --cov and generate an HTML coverage report. Upload it as a CI artifact. Link to the coverage badge in your README. Coverage is not the goal. Showing you measure it demonstrates maturity. Fourth, a failing test that you deliberately left in and documented. A known issue section in your README that says test X is currently skipped. Because the feature is behind a feature flag in staging. This shows you understand that test suites are living documents, not perfect artifacts. Fifth, issues on your repository. Open issues describing future improvements. A framework with open issues looks maintained. A framework with 0 issues looks abandoned or incomplete. These details take an extra hour. They make the difference between a project someone schemes and a project someone bookmarks. We have covered a lot of ground in this series. Fixtures in conftest for clean, composable setup. Mocking for fast, reliable tests that do not depend on external systems. Parallel execution for suites that run in minutes, not hours. Test data management for dynamic, collision-free, cleanable data. GitHub Actions for a CI pipeline that runs on every change. And now a portfolio framework that puts it all together. These are not theoretical concepts. They are the tools that professional automation engineers use every day on real teams at real companies. When you implement them, your test suite becomes an asset. Not a chore that someone reminds you to run. An asset that the team relies on. That shift is what separates a junior QA engineer from a senior one. Not knowing more tools. Knowing how to build something the team trusts. That is QA Career Lab. Every episode in this channel is a step toward that. If you made it through this entire series, you now have everything you need to build an automation framework that stands up to professional scrutiny. Put it on GitHub. Link it in your resume. Show it in interviews. Subscribe for the next series. We are not done. There is more coming: performance testing, security testing, AI-assisted QA. And the career side of things, how to get the job, how to grow once you have it. Thank you for watching QA Career Lab. New episodes every day. See you tomorrow.